something that is a little bit more aggressive with Arceus. And then on the other side of the table, we have Ancient Box, a pretty standard COD list. Not seeing anything too surprising. The choice of ace spec is not the usual Awakening Drum. It's actually Prime Catcher this time around.
Well, Olive here on the left already has 2 top 128 finishes with Arceus V-Star, whereas Dustin did top 4 in Worlds of 2013, and also happens to make art for a lot of streamers in the Pokemon sphere too.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with Dustin, a very good player, has been playing for a very long time, clearly, and it's very nice to see him up here once again.
Oh, well, let's dive into these prize cards. What do you see in here, Pablo?
That Scovet, that forced Scovet being prized, it might be a little annoying for Olive, might not allow to really look through too many cards by using multiple B-Barrels per turn. And then Dustin with the double Explorer's Guidance at the very top, that could definitely be problematic for Dustin, as you want to play a supporter card pretty much every turn with these decks that don't have like a support engine such as B-Barrel.
Yeah, this is going to be a little bit of tough, I think, here for Dustin, especially a supporter like Explorer's Guidance. It is turning through your deck. It is getting through those cards. It is allowing you to pick and choose what you choose to keep and what you know is going into the discard to get further throughout these matches. But we've seen the fist bump here. Our players are ready to kick things off. This is, of course, our Swiss round 5. Both these players sitting at 4-0, and they're going to try to keep their winning record here, but we're starting over on Dustin's side, and that Flutter Mane is going to be the active Pokemon here. So let's dive more into this deck here, Pablo. How would you say this deck functions, and what is the strategy or change of strategy that it's going to see going against Olive's deck over here on the left?
Well, I think as Dustin, you first need to identify what you're up against, because if you see a Bidoof, it could be Qianbao. Like, odds are it's more likely something like Qianbao than an Arceus deck. So first he's going to need to identify that. It's not like his strategy is going to change too much, just because he needs to get a lot of Pokemon into a discard pile and start dishing a lot of damage.
Yeah, and that's what you're going to be seeing here for Dustin, just getting through all of these cards. We saw the Radiant Greninja come down here for Dustin as well. That's going to allow for a little bit of extra draw support here. But yeah, as you said, it's just a little Bidoof. You don't really know what exactly you're going up against yet. So you're just looking to get a strong, stable start here with this deck.
Yeah, get your Roaring Moons out, get an energy attachment down, start accumulating cards with his Greninja. And then over on Olive's side, she wants to bench an Arceus and attach an energy to it. That's her #1 goal, and based on her hand, I'm not liking it. It's a bunch of energies and a tool card and a grabber.
Oh, that's a lot of energy.
And a stadium, but no way to search for an Arceus. So Olive's gonna need a very good top deck to do something significant here.
Oh my gosh, yeah, just a little bit doof in the active. Let's see what the top deck is. Is that an Ultra Ball?
It is an Ultra Ball.
That is a little bit of safety here. Gonna allow Olive to discard a couple cards here and grab at least a Pokemon to work with here. And that's what you need to see over on this side, especially with any Arceus deck. You're trying to establish those Pokemon and that energy on your beginning turns to really get the stable start that you need on this side. Dustin, on the other hand, was able to play that Roaring Moon that was in the hand with an energy as well. So pretty solid start. Didn't really get to see a good look at the hands, but hopefully we're going to get a good game from both of these players.
Yeah, very clutch top deck there with the Ultra Ball. Otherwise, we would have seen a very quick game one. But Olive manages your one goal as an Arceus player, which is bench an Arceus, attach energy. Now, she's going to need another good top deck in order to keep in this game. But at least she did something right now. And it is very nice. She's going to use this down store, not because she needs any specific tool card right now, but just because by taking one card out of your deck, you're slightly increasing your chances of top decking a better card next turn.
Yeah, so just taking a look through the deck as well. Going to select a tool card there for that choice belt. I guess where is the line, Pablo, of like putting something down to thin something from your deck, but also potentially helping your opponent as well? Is it just depending on what you're going against?
It might depend on what you're going against, as you mentioned, but I think like you can never be scared of potentially helping your opponent if you're not helping yourself, right? Because you don't know if your opponent's going to benefit from that or not. But if you benefit, that has to be your #1 priority, as we see the very threatening Bidoof now with that choice belt.
I was about to say, you know, who's benefiting from that choice belt? That Bidoof right there. That is awesome to see. Well, we're going to see the other side of that. The town store is being activated now on Dustin's side, so it's going to be able to search out that ancient booster energy capsule there with the town store.
Yeah, very well done by Dustin, taking advantage of your opponent's tools as well, or of your opponent's stadium to help you. It's going to be very advantageous, right? It's something small, but it could definitely benefit you. And now Dustin seems to have a pretty good follow-up, has the Professor Status Vitality to start powering up, and can potentially start attacking this turn.
Yeah, so now we got a little bit of extra HP here for that Roaring Moon thanks to that town store. We're going to see that Professor Sada's Vitality attached to energy that we saw go to the discard pile the turn before, straight onto those ancient Pokemon. And that is kind of the name of the deck here, these ancient Pokemon and supporters all interacting together to make some powerful combinations here. So Dustin has a fully set up Roaring Moon here, still going to be going through the deck with concealed cards, discarding that fighting energy as well to draw into 2 more cards. And then we're going to go into a Pokegear 3.0, top 7 cards, grab a supporter out.
Yeah, this Pokegear is actually a very smart move by Dustin. I think this is, even though he has already played a supporter this turn, he's probably going to play a Pokestop as his stadium of choice, and by getting the supporter out of the deck, then he's able to increase the chances that he's going to either discard cards like more Flutter Mains or the Koraidons to add to his damage output, or find useful item cards. So very well done there by Dustin.
Yup, it's going to be a bump now of that town store there for the Pokestop, so that's going to allow Dustin to potentially use it here now, and we're going to see some discards. It's going to be everything except that Super Rod that's going to go into the hands because it is an item card. But remember, the name of the game, once again, it's an ancient box deck. You're trying to get those ancient cards into the discard pile to buff your damage on this little tiny Roaring Moon there. It's tiny. It's not the big Roaring Moon EX, but I'll tell you what, it can hit for quite a bit of damage here once you start stacking up that discard. And it's not, I wouldn't say fast paced, like you're moving fast paced as far as what you're trying to do, but it does take time to build up. But again, you're single prize Pokemon, so you have that time to be able to build up and take these knockouts. And that's going to be the first knockout here in this game from Dustin on that poor little Bidoof. Olive is going to do the Pokestop and lose a Bidoof and a Bibarel. Go into this Ultra Ball to discard 2 of these Fire Energy as well to get a Pokemon out. At least we're going to see this Arceus V-Star.
Yeah, that Pokestop actually really benefited Olive here. I mean, there's no way for Dustin to know how bad Olive's hand was prior to this, and you would never hold back on the Pokestop with no information. But yeah this Pokestop really bailing Olive out. Will be able to Starburst for any 2 cards, and you have to expect a backup Pokemon and a Josh to be her choices.
The Ultra Ball bailing out. Honestly, this whole match so far, the Ultra Ball, so powerful of a card, but of course you're going to have to lose some resources for it. We're going to see an Iono, though, here for both of our players. So all of those cards that were in the hand for Dustin are going to be shuffled up and put to the bottom of the deck. Of course, both of our players are going to draw up their hands to how many prize cards they have. So 1 less on Dustin's side of the field.
Now, Olive has lost 2 Bidoofs into a discard pile, but there is still a 3rd. These Arceus control variants are playing a 3-3 Bibarel line, so this last Bidoof standing will be the hero that Olive needs.
Oh, and we're going to see that's the counter catcher?
Yep.
There, that counter catcher. Olive is technically losing in the game of Pokemon TCG right now. Down a prize card on Dustin's side, so Olive still has 6, allowing for that counter catcher to be activated to switch that Radiant Greninja into the active and take the knockout here. That is going to hinder Dustin, especially after that Iono that we saw as well. We're going to have to see a pretty solid hand here. Hopefully gotten some good draws, because no more concealed cards for Dustin.
Yeah, now in the long run, I like knocking out the Greninja, but I think in the more immediate future, you know that Dustin didn't have a backup Roaring Moon in their previous hand.
Yeah.
That's why it wasn't on the bench. And you saw them use a Professor Sada and discard another one with the Pokestop. That leaves very few Professor Sadas left in the deck, so I really would have liked to see the attack here, as long as she can find a Lost Vacuum eventually to knock out this Roaring Moon, because getting rid of your opponent's attackers is usually going to be a little bit better because they need so many resources to keep up with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I swear I've heard a term for it. I think it's like managing threat levels on the field.
Yep.
So it's a sort of pick and choose where you hear about it so much talked about, like Chen Pao, if you take out the back's caliber, then you limit them so much. But in situations like this, it does get a little dicey that, oh, maybe I should take out this thing that can hit me for a bunch of damage, or I could take out some consistency with the Radiant Greninja. So Olive making that choice to take out the consistency there on the Radiant Greninja, but that Roaring Moon remains to take some more damage off of this field. I'm interested to see how much we're actually hitting for at this point now, huh, Pablo?
Yeah, I'd love to have an ancient counter
yeah, I know.
to be able to determine how much damage this Roaring Moon is going to do. I'm going to predict it's around the 150 to 170 mark at this point. There are quite a few ancient cards in the discard pile right now. But yeah, as we were mentioning, like finding that lost vacuum to remove this tool so that Arceus could actually knock at the Roaring Moon would not be an easy task. So I understand Olive's choice to go after the draw engine.
Yeah, that's true. Take a prize card if you can kind of follow that pace, the prize to prize there. Yeah, definitely a choice there from Olive, and we'll see if it pays off for her in the end here. I'm excited to see what we're going to be hitting for here. We did see Explorer's Guidance, I believe, from Dustin's side of the field as well. Again, 2 of them are in the prize cards. So one of few in the deck there from Dustin. Now we're looking at a Pokegear here and allowing Dustin to draw another supporter potentially. Or wait, what's happening now?
This is the Explorer's Guidance.
This is the Explorer's Guidance, okay.
He's choosing the 2 cards to keep, discarding the other 4. And yeah, he kept the Pokegear, noticing there's no supporters in my hand right now at this point in time. And I'm probably going to need this to find a Professor Sada or an Explorer's Guidance follow-up for next turn. Yeah,
you definitely don't want to debilitate your own hand by losing that consistency of drawing through your deck and, of course, being able to discard more cards into your deck. The Explorer's Guidance, perfect card in this deck because it does allow you to discard more ancient cards and pick and choose what exactly you need at which time as well. So fantastic there from Dustin.
Yeah, and Dustin recognizing that he really needs that Greninja to go a little bit deeper into the deck, find those key supporters at the right time, find the follow-up Roaring Moon and fill up his hand with resources. So going to put the Greninja and 2 energies back and immediately get the Greninja out.
Yeah, exactly. Super Rod is going to allow those 2 energies in the Greninja, but that Nest Ball is going to pull that Greninja right back out of the deck, which is what you see here from Dustin. And I assume we're going to be seeing it used as well here in a second from with that concealed cards. Of course, have to discard an energy here. It's going to be 2 extra cards for Dustin, an Earthen Vessel and another energy card. So potentially 3 energy.
Yeah, so much energy access, which is always good, right?
Yeah.
But you also definitely need to have enough attackers to take advantage of those energies. So
yes,
which so far so good. Yeah, Dustin has the 2 ancient booster energy capsules in play, giving Roaring Moon 200 HP, and now Dustin is going to do the same thing. He's going to go after the engine for Olive, recognizing that there's already 2 Bidoofs gone. This 3rd one is super, super important to take down.
Trying to hinder in every single way possible, especially if you're also looking at the prize mapping. 1 Bidoof already went down, so if we take another one, that's collectively 2 prize cards there total, as well as taking out that draw support from Olive's side. And just knowing there's already 2 Bidoofs in the discard pile, so this is going to be the last one here if Dustin's able to take it out. And then, of course, we also saw this Pokegear being played. It's going to draw out a penny from the deck as well. And then we're going to see that knockout on the Bidoof for that prize card.
Now, that Pokegear I definitely didn't like because you already played your supporter. Like, you already played your supporter for turn, and any supporter you find, you're going to put into your hand against a deck that plays 4 Iono and 4 Judge usually.
Yeah,
you're like
true.
So much disruption. So then you're, number 1, losing the resource of Pokegear, and number 2, if your opponent plays Iono and you put a draw supporter back into the deck, now you're not going to draw it, right? And now this is 1 less Pokegear that Dustin can draw off of this Judge to find a follow-up Professor Sada or Explorer's Guidance.
Yeah, that is very true, Pablo. Definitely an interesting strat there that we saw from Dustin to play down that Pokegear. But now all of this is being shuffled back into the deck for both of our players. They're going to draw into 4 cards. A fantastic card to play in Olive's deck here because usually you're drawing into more cards with your Bibarel. This time around, it's just going to be 4 cards and see what we have to play with from there on Olive's side. Of course, this Arceus V-Star still in the active position here, and it's got 3 Fireball energies on it, so it's hitting for full damage, unlike that double turbo Arceus V-Star on the bench.
Yeah, and that's so crucial, Boo, because now you're doing exactly 200 damage. You're taking down your opponent's Roaring Moon, and they have no energy in play. There's 2 Professor Sadas right here.
Yep.
So finding another one, you just judge them. So Olive went from being in complete top deck mode into needing to hit the Pokestop into a dominating position on the board.
Yeah, this is huge here. I mean, when you're looking at Dustin's side of the field, you're facing off against these bulky Arceus V-Star. They're 280 hit points there for Olive, and Dustin is kind of picking up the pieces on the other side. You know, we saw that judge into 4 cards, of course, top deck here. Pokestop's still in play, but Dustin is not going to have a lot of cards here to be able to potentially rescue this turn coming up.
Yeah, and even the Pokegear that Dustin played, right? Like now
Yes,
that's one
you're
less
right.
resources that you can use to play Professor Sada. So a little bit against the ropes here for Dustin. He does have access to more Roaring Moons, which is great. He does also have concealed cards to draw a couple extra cards, but if he doesn't find exactly Professor Sada, Dustin is not going to be doing anything at all this turn.
Well, we're going to see this Nest Ball. Dustin's going to take a look at the deck here, of course, also drawing that Roaring Moon up to the front. Going to be able to be brought out with the Nest Ball, but also just taking a look at resources. I mean, this deck is just so heavy on managing resources because you got to think, a lot of them, it's sort of like the Lost Box engine where a lot of your deck, instead of being Lost Zone, is being discarded in this deck. So you have to keep track of what you still have access to, what is in your prize cards as well, which we know were several supporters for Dustin, and then what you're still able to work with from here. And sometimes the answer is I have nothing to work with because I have no draw, unfortunately.
Yeah, this deck is very reliant on its supporters, right? The only engine is Greninja, and it's it can be a little mess.
Oh, wow,
sometimes.
look at that.
All right.
I mean, Pokestop is going to get us 3 items there for Dustin, so at least no more supporters going into the discard pile for Dustin. I guess that's good to see. We're going to see a concealed cards. This is just pure draw into the hand. Let's see what it is. It's just going to be another Flutter Mane as well as a Pokestop from Dustin's concealed cards off that Radiant Greninja.
Yeah, no attack for Dustin this turn. No access to Professor Sada's Vitality. And, yeah, not in a great spot. Probably needs to get at least 1 energy down by playing the Superior Energy Retrieval. Get an energy on one of his bench Roaring Moons. But this is the perfect opportunity for Olive to play a disruption card such as Airy, because he just saw the 3 cards that Dustin got off Pokestop, right? So why not get rid of some of them yourself?
Yeah, that's true. That is very true. The Superior Energy Retrieval. Discard 2 cards, and then you can put 4 energy, up to 4 energy, back straight into your hand. So you lose a little bit, you gain a lot back there. And then it's also a nice play in this deck as well, because usually you're trying to discard those ancient cards. So more synergy there with our ancient mechanic here in the Pokemon TCG. Dustin's just going to be able to attach one onto the benched Roaring Moon. The Roaring Moon that's inactive is the one that has that ancient booster energy attached to it. But I mean, that Arceus V-Star is hitting through right now. Anyway, we're going to see the Magma Basin. That's going to bump the Pokestop. Even less consistency there for Dustin's side. And Olive is, let's see what the hand has here for Olive.
She has all 3 options, Judge, Iono, or Airy. I'm really hoping she doesn't play Iono. I think that's the worst part to play here, because you see that your opponent did not play Professor Sada or did not play Explorer's Guidance, so you know it's not in their hand. There's no reason for them not to play that card. So if you Iono, since these cards go to the bottom, you're actually letting your opponent get 4 cards closer to a Professor Sada or an Explorer's Guidance. I would really like to see an Airy here. Olive saw, all right, Judge is like the second best
That's
supporter
like the
to play.
middle option there, Pablo.
Like you saw your opponent get a Super Rod, right? And they've already played 1, so then usually they count for ancient boxes too. So if you're very aware of how your opponent drew off of that Pokestop, and then you get to attack it, right? No more super odds, and therefore your opponent loses any ability to recover energies and recover potential attackers. So I really would have loved to see an Eri hit the board right here, but Judge is definitely way better than Iono in this case.
Yeah, she's going to opt for the Judge here, so both our players shuffling up. Again, I feel like we cannot keep hands in this matchup here, Pablo, but hey, that keeps it exciting, right? So 4 cards for both of our players here that we're working with now. A lot of ball cards there in Olive's hands, but it's just going to be taking the knockout here, going down another prize card. Olive only going to have 3 left to take this game here in our Swiss round 5. Dustin going to have to choose who to promote, is going to look at these resources in the discard pile before making that decision.
Yeah, Olive in a fantastic spot, and as mentioned, she went from having a lone Bidoof and being in top deck mode, potentially getting donked, into being in the charge of this, in the lead of this game. And it's up to Dustin to make something happen. He will be able to thin his deck of energies. He will be able to draw. Oh no, he already drew and he didn't find anything. Never mind. He's in trouble.
Yeah, I was about to say, this is looking a little bit tough here for Dustin. We're going to see that energy come down onto the Roaring Moon in the active. Several more ancient booster energy capsules. It seems like they're infinite in this deck, I swear, coming down onto the field as well onto both those Roaring Moons. And then we're going to finally see some damage on the board here from that Roaring Moon. And we actually get to see how much we're working with now.
Yeah, 14 ancient cards, now 15 with that Earthen Vessel after the Eri. We're going to see a Palpad recover 2 Disruption resources. And one thing I would love to see now Olive do is power up this Arceus with more energy so that eventually he can retreat, because these 2 Roaring Moons now have 200 HP and you're not going to be KOing them. So you need more energy on your Arceus so that you can eventually retreat away that double turbo and be able to keep pushing your advantage. You can win in 3 turns, including this one, but you will not be able to if you can't want to KO your opponent's Pokemon.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. Just trying to find the outs here to set up as well as you can here for this matchup from Olive, and that might be an option there that we got to work with, that double turbo. It's great when you are able to get off an early knockout, but then I guess it hinders you in this point in time when you are nerfed that 20 damage on that Arceus V-Star. So pure energy, you're hitting 200, little less with that double turbo, but still, Olive down to just 2 prize cards here. Oh, Dustin's gonna go to game 2 now. Oh,
yeah.
Nothing drawn?
Nothing drawn off of that Greninja. No Professor Sada's Vitality found, and that is where things fall apart for Ancient Box, unfortunately. They rely so much on Sada to get those energy into play, and with 2 Explorer's Guidance as well, prize for Dustin. It's like usually you'll use those to thin your deck and get those Professor Sadas from play. Now, I do want to mention how that Pokegear, there's no way to guarantee that Dustin would have drawn that Pokegear, right? But it's an extra chance to find it. So it's like these are the little crucial things that can sometimes be the difference in any game, really.
No, that really is a good point, because you have to make sure that each of your cards you're using have maximum utility of, like, why. You have to have a purpose behind why you're using them. Otherwise, why are you using them, you know? We're looking back at a couple of these back and forth turns between our players from our first round here. We were seeing those Bidoofs fall to the discard pile from Dustin's side of the field. Olive down to no Bidoof potential on board, but was able to just bulk up these Arceus V-Star and continuously take knockouts. And as I was saying about this Roaring Moon deck, you know, you're fast paced in the amount of cards you're trying to discard as fast as possible, get your damage output up, keep track of resources, but it does take a little bit of work to get there. And if you're not able to take these knockouts while you're still on the back foot of trying to just stabilize your turn altogether, it can be kind of tricky here. And I hope Dustin succeeds here, because I mean, you saw in our caster predictions, I have a Roaring Moon on there, so, you know, I'm rooting for it this weekend. You know, I had a pretty big breakout when this format first started, and then just kind of trickled off, and I kind of want to see a resurgence, because I think it's a really cool single prize deck. But, of course, standing in the way of the Roaring Moon is Olive, and she's bringing the heat here with those fire energy in this Arceus build deck. How would you describe this deck, I guess? Like, what would you name this, Pablo?
I mean, I think I would name it Arceus Control.
Control?
Yeah, Arceus Control, even though it's not like, or maybe like Arceus Disruption, perhaps.
Ooh, I like that.
Even though every Arceus tries to disrupt. But yeah, as you mentioned, Boo, you're totally not biased in this matchup in particular. And those 280 HP, oh my gosh, 2 more supporters in the prizes once again. At least it's 1-on-1.
I was going to say, I mean, it's a little bit further down, I guess, too. So we're starting there. But hey, this time around, the Squove is definitely not in the prizes because it's in the active here for Olive. I don't know if that's too much better, but it's there. It's on the field. Dustin starting with the Fluttermane in the active position here to start off this round. And we did start with the Pokegear, so depending on what the hand was, we've probably stabilized a little bit more. Oh wait, I don't think it even got anything off that first Pokegear, but we're going into a second Pokegear. Let's hope we can find, there we go, a supporter card. It's going to be that Explorer's Guidance. 1 in the prize cards, but now 1 into Dustin's hand here to set up for this next upcoming turn, because I believe Dustin is going first.
Yep. So
will not be able to play a supporter for this turn, but still able to get a couple more cards to the hands with this concealed cards off this Radiant Greninja.
Now I am once again puzzled by the decision to play those 2 Pokegears right off the bat in a turn where you can't use your supporter. You know you're up against a deck that plays a high count of Judge, a high count of Iono. That means if you find your supporters, either the Pokegear is gone and they're going back to the deck, and now you have less chance to find one.
Oh my gosh.
Or they go directly to the bottom of Iono.
Do you think it's because of the Pokestop? Like, just play the Pokegear so you don't discard it off the Pokestop?
I would imagine that's a reason, but I think mathematically it just doesn't make sense. Like, the chance of you discarding a supporter is low enough to where you can forgo, right? If you discard 1, that's fine. Having access to 2 Pokegears for those turns where you're going to have a low card hand, and even in the future, you can Pokestop into a Pokegear into the supporter.
Yeah. Well, Pablo, what are the chances of discarding 3 Pokemon off a Pokestop? Because that is unfortunately what we just witnessed there for Dustin. 3 Pokemon hitting the discard pile, and now the Pokestop is gone. So it's like 0 utility from that Pokestop. Thanks, Pokemon Go. But Town Store is now out on the field from Olive's side. And that Arceus V is down, has the double turbo energy. That's what we want to see for the basics of an Arceus V-Star deck. Bidoof is also down. We have options here. Squovit is in play at the moment. And Olive just retrieved that that little CD disc. I'm like blanking on the
Technical Machine Devolution, yeah. Speaking of 0 utility, right? That card definitely not very useful in this matchup at all. So nice way for Olive to thin her deck a little bit, and off to races, right? Now she was able to get an Arceus down, a double turbo, has the Bidoof down as well. Couldn't nest dash because the Fluttermane does block that, but didn't need to, of course. I'm speaking like maybe in the future if she ends up bringing the Arceus to the active before she uses that ability, she just needs to be very careful with that Midnight Fluttering ability.
Yes, that is very true. We saw that Fluttermane in the start in our last game as well, but it wasn't there for very long, that is for sure. Dustin starting things off on this turn 2 here, similarly to our last game as well. Town Store searching out that Ancient Booster Energy Capsule. It's going to go down onto that Koraidon that we now see on the field here for Dustin. So as we saw, three Pokemon hit the discard pile, but of course there's always Super Rods in the future, but unfortunately, you don't really want to have to use them if you don't have to on a bunch of Pokemon that you didn't mean to discard per se.
Yeah, the Roaring Moon getting discarded is definitely a big deal. The Koraidon and Cobalion can probably be okay, but you want Roaring Moons, right? Those are your big damage dealers, and right now there are none in Dustin's bench.
Exactly.
You would definitely prefer to be powering up a Roaring Moon right about now, but there doesn't seem to be an easy way to do so, and he has a lot of wait, is that the Explorer's Guidance?
Yes, this is the Explorer's Guidance right now, yeah, just being decided on. So it looks like 2 were already kind of picked out here. I think it's the Ultra Ball.
Yeah, Ultra Ball, and is eyeing up the Explorer's Guidance once again, and does need that Ultra Ball to establish one Roaring Moon at least, and we'll get more ancient cards, but those Earthen Vessels are very important to make sure you have a continuous stream of energy.
Yeah, 2 of them going into the discard pile now here for Dustin. So a little bit awkward there. Hopefully we'll have an abundance of energy potentially like we saw last game, but there's definitely less chance of that now potentially happening. We're going to see this Ultra Ball here discarding more of these ancient cards. So that's going to be an ancient booster energy capsule as well going in there. That's 2 more ancient cards to the discard pile here for Dustin. And of course, searching out that Pokemon. We needed that Roaring Moon, and now it is here thanks to Ultra Ball.
Yep, mentioned Fletching. The main reason that this deck is so powerful is because it has no damage cap, right? You can deal as much damage as you have ancient cards in your deck, and Dustin knows he needs to power that up as soon as he can. Does try to distract a little bit by powering up this Koraidon, where this way Olive, like, if she goes after the Koraidon, she gets 2 energies in the discard ball for Dustin.
Yeah.
So very good play. And if Dustin just has to use that early on and apply pressure, that's also fine.
Yeah, that's true. A little bit of a smoke screen there being thrown out onto the field from Dustin. We're back onto Olive's side of the field now as she starts things off with that evolution into the Arceus V-Star. So, and not even off an Ultra Ball this time. Just in the hand here from Olive, and we're going to see that incredible V-Star power ability from that Arceus V-Star as well. What it is known for, one of the most powerful V-Star powers, I think, in the entire game. You just go into your deck, search out any 2 cards that you want. Don't even have to reveal them. You just search them out and play them, and that is going to get Olive into what was needed here, that Jet Energy to get that Arceus V-Star into the active position. Skwovet's now safe on the bench. Boss's orders for that Roaring Moon. Olive says, I'm not taking the smoke screen. I'm going to use this Town Store, and then I'll be knocking out this Roaring Moon for you, Dustin. Sorry about that.
Yeah, very well done by Olive, as you mentioned. She didn't fall for that smoke screen. Yeah, didn't go after the energy this time, just going after the Roaring Moon, which is obviously the main attacker of the deck. Olive knows this, and she's also not very scared at all of any sort of retaliation by Dustin.
Yeah.
There are definitely not enough ancient Pokemon or ancient cards in the discard pile to do enough damage. Now the Arceus has to be 180 HP, and so even though she didn't power up at a backup Pokemon, that's fine. There's still time.
Yo, that's brutal. A Hero's Cape on the Arceus V-Star. Super bulky here. 380 HP now that Dustin is going to have to get through. And that's just another obstacle, unfortunately, that we're seeing here for Dustin. I'm going to hope that we can try to pick things up here, but is the consistency just going to be too much for Dustin to have to face off against? We'll have to see. Koraidon in the active position now here from Dustin. Going to jump back into the deck from this Town Store and grab another Ancient Booster Energy Capsule. Thinning out the deck, getting some more cards into hand. We'll see what else Dustin has to work with here coming up.
Yeah, this Ancient Booster Energy Capsule thinning is very important. Dustin really needs to find more Roaring Moons off of this Explorer's Guidance and then make sure he can power them up. There's nothing else to be done here, and I think Dustin debating whether to use concealed cards first or not. I feel like with 2 Earthen Vessels gone, you can't afford that because you need to, especially now with a Hero's Cape, you need to at least soften up the Arceus a little bit to put it in range of a normal amount of ancient cards and not all your ancient cards in the discard pile.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, it looks like Dustin's debating here, taking a look at how many cards or what cards are in the discard pile here now. Looks to be kind of frustrated, like, oh, what do I do? And I feel that, honestly, is going to be playing this Explorer's Guidance here. So we're going to be looking at these cards, and 2 of them are going to go into the hands.
Does find the Professor Sada, but there are no ways to find any Roaring Moons or Roaring Moons themselves.
My gosh, look at all those resources that are discarded as well there for Dustin. And they weren't really ancient resources either.
Yeah, it was only one Great Tusk and then 2 more Pokegears gone. So even though Dustin plays 4, they really weren't any good at all at this point.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we've been talking about kind of lack of utility here in some of these plays and some of these unfortunate events that are happening, and that is definitely an awkward one there for Dustin. I feel like that's kind of the name of the game here. So we're gonna. It's tough because Dustin always like plays the card and then puts it at the bottom. So I'm like, where'd the card go? But that this is gonna be the earthen vessel here, discarding that boss's orders into the discard pile to secure 2 basic energy into the hand.
Yeah, that boss's orders. Another resource gone for
I
Dustin,
know,
and
that's
his
tough.
board definitely doesn't justify the size of his discard pile, right? So many
Yes.
resources gone, but very little accomplished, and not by his own decision, right? It's just
Yeah.
the way the cards have combined for him have just not been very decent.
Yeah, it's been awkward, very clunky card draws and options here from Dustin's side, but hopefully this Super Rod is some sort of turn in events in this game, Pablo. That's what I'm hoping for, at least. We're still only 1 prize card down here in this game, 2 between our players. Olive, of course, leading with that prize card. Super Rod going to shuffle those resources back into the deck for Dustin, and hopefully we can get going somewhere off this concealed cards. That's at least going to be a nest ball here now, and then the counter catcher drawn off that concealed cards for Dustin.
Yeah, counter catcher could be useful to take down this Bidoof with Koraidon. That
Yeah.
might be his best choice here, although, once again, if hitting 330 damage on a Charizard EX is difficult, now hitting 380 on an Arceus V-Star is going to be pretty much impossible. So you're going to have to two-hit KO this Arceus V-Star. Getting the hit in on the active seems good when your opponent doesn't have anything else either. And with the Ancient Booster Energy Capsule, we can finally protect this Roaring Moon and make sure it doesn't go down unless Olive plays a Lost Vacuum, which coincidentally she already has in her hand.
Yes, yes, already in the hands here, but Dustin is going to make his way to a prize card, knocking out that Bidoof with that counter catcher. Being down in prize cards now, our players are tied. So that Koraidon doing a little work here, and Olive is going to start off this turn, of course, with that Lost Vacuum now into an Iono. So both of our players are losing those hands. They're going to the bottom of the deck.
Yep, Iono does find the Arceus V to power up and have a follow-up. Will be able to nest ball for that Bidoof. It's funny that we have seen 4 Bidoofs hit the border discard pile, and we have yet to see a Bibarel at all. Poor little Beatles just not being able to freely evolve in this match.
Yes, I know. A new viewer is probably watching like, what did these Bidoofs do? What is happening here? But of course, yeah, we're looking for that final evolution into the Bibarel to be able to get some draw support on Olive's side. But I mean, hey, even without draw, still doing pretty solid here now, being able to accelerate, well, first of all, take knockouts, super bulky Arceus V-Star in the active position thanks to that Hero's Cape. Now we're accelerating energy on to another Arceus V on the bench here to save up another attacker, and that's just putting more and more in the way of Dustin to have to get through, and also taking another prize card. So down to 4 prize cards left to take this game a strong 2-0 victory against Ancient Box. And Dustin is just on the back foot once again.
Fantastic top deck for Dustin, though. That Professor Sada finally found. Last turn, Dustin finally found one, had it in his hand, and then it went to the bottom, as you mentioned. But was able to top deck another one, now has access to Nest Ball, has access to another Ring Moon. Will finally be able to get 2 energies into play. And then I think this promotion of the Flutter Mane shows how Dustin really wants to play Prime Catcher this turn to be able to knock down this Arceus. He knows that the Lost Vacuum is gone, there's probably not a second one available, and therefore this Roaring Moon could actually survive the hit because of the double turbo.
Yeah, that is very true, Pablo. Identifying where on board can you take these knockouts, and that Arceus V is still just an Arceus V. It is not a V-Star that has that bulky amount of HP, especially one with a Hero's Cape on it as well. So that was an incredible top deck here for Dustin. It's going to allow for a lot better of a setup here. So I'm very happy to see that. We're going to see this game continue on. Pokestop is going to join us on the field, bumping that town store. We're not going shopping. We're walking around and playing some Pokemon Go now.
Indeed, Professor Sada is not here to play Pokemon Go. He's here to play cards. Draw 3, and no Prime Catcher found yet. We're probably going to see the Pokestop next. We might see a little bit of thinning with the Ultra Ball.
Yeah, that is true. Whew. Professor Sada's Vitality, such an incredible card. here. Allows you to accelerate that energy, similar to Arceus V-Star on the other side, accelerating energy, but also draw into those cards as well. The ancient welder of sorts. So Dustin gonna look at what to do with this hand. Yeah, like you said, Pablo, Pokestop is still an available option as well. Gonna need to continue to stack up the damage that's going in this discard. Pokestop is gonna put 2 supporters and an energy card into the discard pile. Not a single item card off of there.
Now that does feel very harsh in the sense that gets rid of supporters, right? It does increase the damage, of course, but Prime Catcher, I think, was Dustin's main plan, but I think Dustin must realize I'm down 1 game, and there's also, like, time is running out. He's not doing too much at this point in time, and because he did choose to power up this 2 Roaring Wounds on the bench, unless he uses conceal cards and gets exactly Prime Catcher plus an energy, because he only has 1 energy in hand, Dustin's not going to be able to even attack this turn, setting up the toolkit KO. So I really have to question why the Roaring Wound didn't get promoted here. Like, putting all your eggs in the Prime Catcher basket felt like a little too much, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if there's something that we don't see, Pablo.
There's the concealed
I'm not
cards.
seeing it. We're seeing the concealed cards now, discarding that energy. So it's just going to be another Professor Sada's Vitality as well as an Ultra Ball. That is not what we were looking to see there off of another energy gone into the discard pile here on Dustin's side.
Yeah, which, like, Professor Sada is great. It's just we've already used it this turn. We don't need another one. We needed energies. We needed the Prime Catcher. And Dustin committed big, which I think is what he needed to do. But unfortunately, didn't really pay off.
Yeah, that is a bummer to see. But unfortunately, that's how this deck goes sometimes. It can be awkward and clunky, but when you're playing on the opposite side of that and it's flowing just as you want it to do, it is so powerful. And again, you're working with single prizers, so you're able to take some huge knockouts. I mean, Dustin was already sort of on the back foot because playing against an Arceus V-Star deck is already difficult with the amount of HP they have, how fast-paced they are getting their attackers set up and knocking you out before you're able to fully establish everything on your side. So kind of already was a difficult matchup, I think, going into this, but especially with the clunky draws and kind of awkward sequencing that we've seen at moments in both these games is leaving us to where we're at right now. With the Flutter Mane in the active, just a pass now after a pal pad there, I think, from Dustin. And we're back over to Olive, who, once again, has 4 prize cards left to take a 2-0 here. That Arceus V is safe and sound on the bench, ready to be evolved now in this turn, and that's 3 fire energy on it as well. So it's going to be fully ready to go, but we already have one that's super bulky with the Hero's Cape in the active position already. So Olive really just needs to continue to establish the consistency, I guess, but just looking good. We're going to see that pivot energy come down for that Bidoof to potentially pivot in the future into a Judge. So we're seeing even more disruption here now from Olive, and that's the name of the deck.
Yeah, definitely. This disruption deck is being very successful, and as you mentioned, Booth, like, Olive's really chilling, just attacking each turn, maybe attaching an energy, deciding what supporter to play. Dustin is working really hard every turn, doing so many actions, but wasn't able to even attack. So I really would have liked to see Dustin give himself the option, like, if you promote this Roaring Wind here, then okay, if you Sada to this and this, then you give yourself the option. If you find Prime Catcher, you can attack with the bench. If you don't, you can attack with the active. And now we see the grabber putting the Roaring Moon at the bottom of the deck.
Yes. Yeah, even more. You can see Dustin just shaking his head right now, like, wow, after everything that you've done so far, Olive, now you're going to grabber me as well. You hate to see it, but hey, Olive is in a dominant position here. She has evolved into the Bibarel as well. Industrious Incisors online for Olive. And another Bidoof coming down.
Second Bidoof to go with that Bibarel. Yeah, Olive's board looking very strong, very powerful, gonna get ahead. An extra prize card, and with 7 minutes left on the clock, I don't think we ever see Dustin come out as a winner this round, but he's definitely going to try his best to get a tie at least.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to do what you can. And both these players are sitting at 4-0 records here. So we're seeing a bit of unlucky play here from Dustin on this stream match. But you got to think, he's already been through 4 matches and won them all. So isn't too bad. Trying to scrape out a tie, potentially going to do everything possible to do that. Roaring Moon joining us in the active position after that knockout, that third knockout from Olive. And Dustin concealed cards, looking through the discard. And we're going to kick off this next turn.
Yeah, Dustin going to be able to play that Professor Sada, get finally 2 Roaring Moons powered up, which I think will be the first time he's been able to do it
Yes.
over the course of 2 games, have a backup attacker to his attacker, and there we see the Prime Catcher finally.
Finally, the Prime Catcher going into the hand here off of that Pokestop. We've seen so much disruption from Olive's side, but it is in the hand. A little bit too late, though, unfortunately.
A little too late. Now, I would love to get a counter on the Ancient cards at this point in time, because there might be enough for the bench Roaring Moon to take down this Arceus that doesn't have the Hero Scape.
Yeah.
So maybe there are quite a lot. And I think there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cards left in Dustin's deck. So there should be very close to enough, if not exactly enough.
Yeah, I think that's what we saw. Dustin counting out how much damage is actually sitting in that discard pile here. That Sada is also going to hit the discard pile, adding a little bit more there, and then energy on the field now. So happy to have that here from Dustin, but just kind of looking defeated. Looked up at the sky there, still playing.
Yeah, we're going to see the Prime Catcher. Probably going to see a knockout. Don't think you ever choose to retreat into the Ancient Booster Capsule to try and survive the next hit. And once again, I would have loved to see Olive continue to power up her own Arceus to eventually find a switch, be able to retreat that double turbo off, have enough energy to continue attacking, because 200 is a magic number against these Roaring Moon Pokemon.
Yeah, if you can hit 200, you're doing pretty well, that is for sure.
Ooh,
Oh, that's not a knockout?
I
Oh, no, wait, we might just be verifying.
Yeah, double checking, make sure the math is correct. 17 plus 7, that's 24, not even enough. 4 cards short, that's so surprising. How are you 4 cards short at this point?
Oh my gosh. It's 4 cards short, and the deck has been thinned so much, and then we're again seeing an Airy as well. It just seems like Dustin just cannot catch a break. Just when you already think you're in a difficult position, it just stacks up to you even more. I think it was 2 Ultra Ball hitting the discard there after that Airy, and Olive is just able to run away with this turn here now, because we have that Squovit on the bench, and then of course the Bibarel pairing with it to allow Olive to draw into more cards. Nestball is going to bring out this Radiant Charizard. Haven't seen it yet, but we did see the Magma Basin to hint that, of course, it is in the deck, and all the fire energy.
Yeah, and all the fire energy. That might have been our first clue.
So just even more being established here from Olive's side of the field. Yeah, it's a lot here. This is a pretty dominant board state. I think Olive is having a pretty nice time playing Pokemon TCG today. What do you think, Pablo?
I would agree, yeah. Like, going from that dead draw situation into a fully dominant game 2 now. Olive did once again open up the possibility for this Roaring Moon takes down the Arceus, and then this Arceus cannot take down that opposing Roaring Moon, but it does have 380 HP, so it's okay taking 2 hits against it, no problem.
That is true. Well, Dustin is going to take 2 additional prize cards here after 2-shotting into that Arceus V-Star. That is going to leave Olive to promote the second Arceus V-Star. Super bulky here, and we're going to see a grabber. Now we're seeing all these control cards coming out every single turn here from Olive to just keep this dominant position here.
No, this is really funny, actually, because I don't think, like, Dustin has played his Palpad, has played his 2 Super Rod, so I'm pretty sure Dustin was going to deck out and Olive just helped him
With
not
the
take
grabber.
out with the grabber, because you cannot choose not to put a Pokemon with grabber. You
Wait,
find
you're
one,
so
you have to
right.
put it back. So, I mean, the last card might be super, I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure Olive just I mean, that's how far ahead Olive is,
I know,
right?
that's
She
what I'm
can
saying.
do that and still be completely fine,
Ugh,
because
my
this
goodness.
humongous HP charge, Arceus is just going to take over the game.
Oh, that is too funny, Pablo. Wow. My gosh. Well, we see this poor little Roaring Moon in the active position here, but no Ancient Booster to up its HP. That Ancient Booster Energy Capsule Roaring Moon was moved to the bench here. So that weak, or I guess vulnerable Roaring Moon being knocked out there from Olive's side, even with the double turbo still on that Arceus V-Star, moving Olive down to just one mere prize card to take, and that is going to be it. Dustin is going to scoop it up. Olive saying, hey, I'm going to take things down here with my Arceus V-Star deck.
Yeah, generally, Olive might have played that grabber just to be like, no, I'm going to beat you. You're
Yeah,
not
that
going
was
to lose.
actually-
I'm going to beat you in the normal way. I'm going to take that last prize card. And yeah, I mean, I generally had zero hope for Olive in that first game. She ran away with it. And Dustin just struggled both games to really have like a strong board.
Yeah.
Game 1, he was off to a decent start, but with only one Roaring Moon, lost his engine. And then in Game 2, just started Koraidon and wasn't doing much. And he had an opportunity to maybe start the aggression, but he put all the eggs in the Prime Catcher basket, and they did not crack through.
They did not crack indeed, that is for sure, Pablo. That was heartbreaking to see. It is one of the decks I am rooting for this weekend, that Ancient Box deck. But hey, as we said, Dustin was at a 4-0 record, is going to be 4-1 at this point, but that is still more than enough matches here to hopefully pick things up in these upcoming rounds. Olive, on the other hand, is moving to a 5-0 record after that incredible 2-0 victory against Ancient Box here. And we're going to see a couple of these plays. This is our game 1 between these players, where we saw the establishment, even without any Bibarel, that much draw support there, Olive was able to just establish these bulky attackers and continue to take knockouts consistently against Dustin, who was, I mean, the biggest enemy was kind of his own deck.
Yeah,
which is kind of sad.
Yeah, Professor Sada worked against him, right? Professor Sada just decided to live in the deck the whole time, did not come out to play. And Olive just did 200, 200, 200, taking a prize card every game. And game 2 was more of the same, that 280 HP. I feel like Dustin might have like tunnel visioned a little bit in terms of like, well, I can't one KO this Pokemon, so I'm going to play around it. Instead of, at one point, such as this one, Olive had very little going for her, other than the Arceus. So if you threaten the 2-hit KO on that Arceus, you're going to be in a much better spot.
Yeah, it just didn't seem like Dustin could ever kind of get a foothold on the game and take a dominant position in this matchup. And yeah, Olive was able to walk away with things even after some shaky starts to this board state that you see now, where, I mean, look at everything that is on this board. It is just absolutely incredible here. And it is no wonder that Olive was able to take that win, especially looking at that game there. So Olive taking a 2-0 victory against Ancient Box with an Arceus V-Star deck. I tell you what, every North American Regional Championship, I plan to see some sort of Arceus builds. I feel like we love our Arceus decks here for sure.
Yeah, Arceus definitely always feels like Arceus came out almost over 2 years ago now.
I know,
it's like,
right?
It's a card that has probably run its course, but players are still finding new ways and new partners to keep it relevant.
Yeah, I know. I had to be like, wait, what is the move name again? Because I'm not playing it anymore. But yeah, it is such a powerful card, and you see that there. But it's